Sorry, look, he has his little tongue out. I don't know if you guys can see that. Oh. It's still out. So cute. Hey guys, and welcome back to this place. If you are new, welcome here for the very first time. I'm Carmen, and today we are delving into Season 3, Episode 14 of Battlestar Galactica. We are approaching the second half of Season 3, and usually there's a lot of really great, interesting, introspective, thought-provoking episodes at the ends of seasons of Battlestar Galactica, so I am looking forward to that. Where we left off was Gaius is about to stand trial. I do worry that there is not an ability for any humans who feel betrayed by Gaius, which I think is all humans right now, to be impartial. So if it is a jury of his peers or even like a judge, I don't know how he could possibly sway them, but I guess we'll see. Someone on Patreon reminded me, and I'm going to butcher this name, so apologies. I think it's Fonchman, something like that. But you were telling me that, or they were telling me, or you, if it's you, you know what I'm trying to say, that, or they were reminding me that Gaius, you know, is guilty of quite a few things. So, yeah, I'm curious to see how this is going to go. Because while I do think that, you know, he is mostly innocent of the mass genocide of humanity and that he didn't know what she would do with the access, it still falls on him that he gave her access not knowing what she was going to do. Right? So, like, that's, I think, his biggest thing. I mean, he did give that other 6 the nuclear weapon that also, when she detonated, led the Cylons back to humans on New Caprica. They would have never found it without the radiation signature. So I guess in a way also everything that happened on New Caprica is also his fault, right? That being said, I still didn't love Adama using the drug-induced psychological torture on him, right? Like, I think that was too far, right? Even if you think that Gaius deserved it, I think the fact that Adama was willing to go to that extreme makes you look at Adama differently, right? Or at least me. What else? Sorry, I'm rambling for an intro. Oh, there was something else I wanted to say. Oh, the Christ-like symbolism on Gaius continues, especially if we consider that 6 said she was a messenger of God, which some of you say that I should take her at her word that that is what she is. And until there's evidence to the contrary, I suppose I am taking her at her word. Although it's definitely going to affect the show if Gaius is, you know, the chosen one, if he is a Christ-like figure and she is a messenger of God. It's going to be very interesting to try to unpack all of that and what it means for the show and the idea of humanity in the show going forward. But anyway, I am rambling far too much for an intro. Let's just get into this episode and see what happens here.
We'll get to it soon. I need you to keep moving for now.
Are you putting the Sagittarius on?
Living arrangements haven't been made yet, sir. I need you to keep moving.
We want to be with our own.
You heard the man. Get your ass in motion.
Move!
I would listen to Ty. He kind of scares me.
Okay, do you feel anything? How about here?
All right, that's enough. Thank you.
Put your hands off me.
Okay,
That's
just a
enough.
second.
That's enough. Thank you very much.
Settle down. There's clearly something wrong with him.
Sir.
Hey, you just keep your hands to yourself.
Okay.
All right?
They don't believe in medicine? I can't remember what their deal is. But if they're all sick and they spread it, that's gonna be really bad.
Mike, Brain dead card cheat. Still owe me that drink.
So, get out of here now.
Oh, you're in a good mood
Sick,
today.
sick.
Hey, Doc. I
They're
don't know,
sick.
but some of these people, they look,
Very sick.
Sick.
Yeah.
sick, yeah.
Wait, medic!
Oh, now you call for the medic.
So, yeah.
Get your hands off my son! Got him. No.
Oh, someone else must have called.
Where are they taking him?
Are,
All right, man. Just walk us.
Question. I don't remember. Are they like the people, I don't know what they're called these days, but like they don't believe in medicine? Because this is a ship with recirculated air? Like, this is a recipe for mass extinction event, right?
How contagious is it?
Well, it's not airborne, so
Okay.
we lucked out.
That's,
there.
yeah.
It's spread through human contact, saliva, sexual intercourse, through the skin.
Okay, so
Right
like a
now,
handshake?
it seems confined to these Sagittarians.
That's good. You're welcome to it.
It's obviously spreading down there where we were working.
It's curable? Absolutely, yes. A shot of betamucin in your right as rain in a day or two. And sedatives alleviate the symptoms.
We should make an announcement.
No, we don't want to
Alarm people?
single them out any more than we
Oh.
already have to. We'll have a riot on our hands. Now, if it were up to me, I would say just get the Sagittarians settled and then deal with the civvies that have already arrived.
Huh. Well, at least you won't have to worry about having enough medicine for the Sagittarians.
Yeah. Most of them are gonna refuse it.
But they'll die.
They're gonna die.
Yeah.
For the last 3,000 years, medicine's been the great curse.
That's because they're a bunch of stubborn, root-sucking jackasses, holding on to traditions that are 1,000 years old.
Look, I also think that people who don't believe in medicine are silly, but I want to know why they don't believe in medicine. Like, why do they think it's a curse? I'm sure I'll still disagree, but I would like to at least knowledgeably disagree.
My son is dead.
Oh.
I'm sorry. It's a summer bread, right? You Sagittarians believe it's supposed to bring good health? Look, I'm sorry, it's not enough. If you don't treat the disease, it's fatal, okay? This didn't have to happen.
Yes, it did. He was killed.
Oh, did someone kill him?
He died.
No, maybe somebody
He died
actually
because he
killed
needed
him,
real
though.
medicine.
He died because I made a mistake.
Okay, good, yeah. And please, tell the others.
I will. I will tell
The
them
mistake was coming
not
here.
to trust him. They warned me about him, but I wouldn't listen.
Who?
I didn't want my son to die. I took a chance.
The doctor?
I went to Dr. Robert. I let the doctor give the medicine to Willie.
You waited too long.
Willie had been sick for less than 12 hours. He was 19. He is dead. That doctor killed my son.
Oh, this is interesting. She went against her belief because she loved her son. Ooh, is this doctor a bad guy? Can we not trust the civilian doctor? That's sus, Hilo. You need to tell Coddle and Adama and whoever else about that.
I'm gonna vaccinate you.
But I'm not sick. I thought we were rationing.
You think I'm gonna wait until you're on your back for a day? Who the hell else is gonna help me around here?
Okay.
I don't know. I don't trust him. I don't trust him. Hilo, I have lack of trust.
How could you possibly throw yourself on the mercy of these people?
And now you're here. Yeah. Your best chance of survival is to work with them. And that means to help them expose Baltar for his crimes.
There's a trick to being human. You have to think
Like a human?
only about yourself.
Well, no. Although, that is kind of biased as strict to being human a lot of times. Just saying.
It's not exact. Everybody's different.
We need to talk to Coddle.
Okay,
This guy
he was
does
marginal.
not know
Look,
what he's
I'm
doing.
not gonna sit here and apologize to you for doing my job. Now, I got 2 pycons down there that are starting to show symptoms. Now, I'm gonna go treat them, if it's all right with you.
The doctor's version of when he administered the drug greatly differed from that of Mrs. King.
Who?
The woman. King, the one I told you about, Mrs. King. Her son showed symptoms. She immediately took him to Robert for treatment. The boy still died. In the other case, Robert treated a Sagittarian without the man's consent.
Well, that's something we probably should have done to all of them in the first place. This disease would have been gone by now.
The only reason we didn't is we're trying to respect the customs of the Sagittarian.
You have to respect people's bodily autonomy as well.
Sir, people could be dying under Robert's care.
I mean,
People die under my
I might disagree with it, but
Are you capable of doing a job? And are you going to stop making these unfounded accusations?
well, any accusation is going to be unfounded if you don't actually look into it and try to investigate the situation.
Yes, sir.
How is he supposed to gather evidence if you...
While you were snuggled up in bed with your Cylon wife every night.
You okay?
He asked for it, TBH. Like, look, here's the thing. People thought Ted Bundy was a great guy until he wasn't.
You do give a frack what your friends think. Good for you.
So it should be. But you know what? I give a frack too. About friends, about loyalty. You keep soiling Mike Roberts' good name, and we are gonna finish this. How's that sound to you?
How about...
Better have the dog take a look at that hand now.
Look, I understand that it's a tricky situation for Ty because he is his friend. And honestly, it's very hard for people to see their friends as the bad guy. So I don't blame Ty in that situation. I just wish that people would give Hilo, like, due respect, you know?
You know, I keep doing it. I keep ending up on the wrong side of everything.
So you're saying... Leave it.
What does that mean, just leave it?
I think she's upset too because you're saying that loving her is the wrong side.
Sagittarians, 90%. 90% of the Sagittarians die
I
while
am
in
not
his care.
going to listen to this. Do you hear me? That man has his hands full down there.
He's signaling out Sagittarians.
There's proof.
Now you just leave it.
I don't...
And get out of here.
I don't believe him. Statistics don't lie. 90% of people you treat don't die of a certain subclass, or not subclass, subgroup of people.
The soldier, Juana, she's sick. She went to the doctor.
Dee better be okay. Is she okay? She better be okay. She's gonna be okay. She'll wake up.
What?
She better wake up.
No.
No, is she awake? No, she's awake. Oh my god. Fucking...
Well, hey.
Take her to Coddle. Take her to Coddle.
What are you doing down here?
Dr. Rock gave me something.
You're in the military. Go to Coddle. Go to Coddle.
Where's Lee?
We're gonna go see him. Come on. Come on. I'm gonna take you to Coddle.
Yes.
Captain.
He's a captain. This is a civilian military. Or civilian doctor.
Get your hand off me, Sergeant.
You told me he was a flake. You didn't tell me he was gay.
Shut the frack up.
Did Coddle do fucking research?
Believe him, do you? He's seriously delusional. He needs help.
Yeah, and we should have given it to him.
Are they finally...
Doc, I didn't check Willie's blood until a couple of hours ago.
I knew it.
I was exhausted, and I'll admit the Sagittarians annoy the hell out of me. I didn't want to go against my colleague.
But you were right about the records, Hilo. There was no Betamucin in the King Boy's body.
He died because it was too late.
No, he didn't. He died of acute cell destruction. He was injected with a toxic bisphosphonate.
Now, obviously, you got a wrong reading here. Now, I don't know what else these people...
No!
The old man, Mr. Buckminster, died of the same thing.
There was no Betamucin in his system.
You killed him, you sick wreck. You ought to be on your knees thanking me for saving your daughter's life, for having the meds to cure her of her illness. Now, you know how painful this disease is at the end, and they don't want our help. Now, why waste time?
If they're
and money
asking
in space
for it,
when all of those resources
then
could
they
go to
want
those
it.
who really deserve it?
You don't get to decide as a doctor who deserves it.
They're going to destroy themselves anyway. I mean, look at them. Look at them out there. They're like worms.
It's not up to you to decide how people live their lives.
Is there anything that you hate more than a Sagittarian?
I'll tell you what I hate, Mike. Being wrong.
He does hate that. He was wrong about you?
Captain Agathon.
Sir?
Arrest this son of a bitch. Gag him if you have to.
My pleasure, sir.
Sometimes Saul makes me so happy.
I didn't harm her.
And I owe you an apology.
Thank you.
It's not necessary, sir.
No, it is. It is. I feel like she could have apologized to him as well. I wish I had one of those clappers to signify that this is take 2 of the post-episode discussion, because I just want to be fully transparent with you guys that it is like 6 hours after I filmed the episode, roughly, and I've just been sitting and thinking about my post-episode discussion while I was like cleaning, while I was working, while I was doing other stuff after the episode, and I feel very dissatisfied with my lack of ability to be articulate and clear and concise in my first post-episode discussion immediately after the episode. There was just lots of me trying to think of what I was trying to say and say it, but never actually saying it, right? So I'm sorry to my editor, 1, for you having to listen to that, and 2, I just wanted to be fully transparent with you guys that this is a little bit later, and I do not often feel the need to do this because I think that usually, even if it's jumbled and emotional and rambly, I like to have my immediate thoughts post-episode, because I think that that's the fun of a reaction, is you're not listening to my well thought out, thoughts and feelings. I haven't watched the episode 5 times and written down like every single aspect of it and then picked it apart, which would also be fun. Do not get me wrong. I would love that. But I think that part of the fun of reactions is that you see people's immediate thoughts, and sometimes your immediate thoughts are just so crazy and weird and interesting and fun and so off base that that's the fun. However, I think sometimes when you're trying to discuss something serious like this episode does, it can be a disservice to not have the time to digest and be more articulate on how you feel about something. So I digested, and now I will hopefully be a little bit more articulate about what I was trying to say, because I do think that it is important. Now, this episode brings up a lot of very important questions and a lot of things that warrant discussion. And I think that particularly for those of us watching this in 2023, in a post 2020 world, if you will, in a post-pandemic, I'm not going to get into all of that. But in that sort of environment and society and pressure cooker of, what we've all been through, I think this episode in particular hits very different probably than it did around 2007 or 2008 when this would have aired. I believe that's when it would have aired. So I think that it's worth talking about it in the context of our world and in the context of when it aired, right? So the episode is bringing up a very interesting sort of debate, right? And the debate is, well, there's all of the Dr. Robert discrimination in medicine, racism, inequality in healthcare, and just lack of access to healthcare that it brings up, that I will talk about in a little bit as well. But I think the main crux of it, well, I think that is the main crux of it as well. But something that I think is interesting is it also brings up the idea of bodily autonomy, as well as religion, as well as society, as well as being a member of society. And also, at what point does somebody's bodily autonomy and choices on what happens to them, at what point do we have to, as a society, realize that there might be more nuance to that discussion when it involves the potential for harm of other people, right? So I think that, like most people, I very much think that I do not care at all what someone else does with their life, what choices they make, what religion they have, what, any of it. I do not care what other people do with their lives. I genuinely don't. As long as what you are doing is not actively harming other people. Because then it's no longer about your personal choice. It's how your personal choice is affecting society as a whole, is affecting other people around you. How you are then, breaking the social contract that we all agree to by being a member of a society, right? I think that as a member of a society, as a person who exists in a world where there are other people, that we have to care about how what we do affects other people, right? It is our duty to give a shit. Like, it just is. It's part of what it means to exist in society. Like, we have to care. It has to matter how my personal choice affects you. And so I think that this episode brings a really interesting sort of thing to light, because the Sagittarians have a religious belief that I fully support, again, to a degree, as long as their personal choice to not do the thing only affects them and can only harm them, that's their choice. Now, when that choice is actively harming or hurting or killing other people, I think we have to realize that there is more nuance to it than just that, right? Like, this episode reminds me of a real life case that I saw a few years ago. I can't remember how long ago it was. It also reminds me of an episode of X-Files, I think. But that's beside the point. There was like a real life case of people, because there are people in our world, in the world we inhabit right now, who do not believe in the intervention of modern medicine, right? Anything that would be considered sort of modern medical intervention would be viewed by certain people as against their religion, against what they believe in, right? And there was a case a few years ago where somebody's daughter, they made a choice, a medical choice on behalf of their daughter, who was, I believe, like 6, 9, she was a child. And I think that she had appendicitis, and they refused an appendectomy because it was against their religious beliefs, and the child died. Which obviously is very preventable. And I cannot remember what happened, in the courts when that case went and people discussed it and everything. I don't remember. But I do think that that is a case where you have to think about the nuance. Because for the parent to decide that for themselves as an adult, they are perfectly within their rights to refuse medical treatment, to go against medical orders from their doctor, whatever. But when they take that right away from their child, and it is not in the best interest of the child, then that's where the nuance kicks in. Now, I only say that because I think that it's important to talk about this in, the post-pandemic world that we exist in. It would be silly of me to not acknowledge that this episode, post-2020, probably hits all of us a little different than it did previously, right? So I don't want to go into 2020. I don't have an answer for that. Okay. I don't want to go into 2020. I don't want to go into the politicizing of the vaccine. I'm not going to talk about that. That's not what this episode is about. That's not what this post-episode discussion is about. This is Nimue, by the way. Isn't she adorable? It has to be discussed. Now, something else that needs to be discussed in this episode is the very real thing that it hints at, or doesn't even hint at, but just sort of points out about our society, which is the idea that Dr. Robert is one playing God and choosing who lives or dies. And that is so fucked up. Like, his choice about who lives and who dies is purely based on classes. This on the web. Okay, thank you. Classism, racism, medical inequality, right? There are many things that you can look at today that talks about medical inequality in the world that we live in. Unfortunately, it is very real. Unfortunately, those sort of people do exist, and it is a very real problem facing communities, in particular, communities of color in our world today. It's just a fact, and it's a horrifying fact. And I don't know if this episode is intending to point that out. I personally feel like it is, because Battlestar often has episodes that are very real, very prevalent to our world and the problems in our world. And I think that they get away with criticizing our world, the military, invasions of like Iraq, Afghanistan, military missteps, military oversteps, talking about the prison system and mass incarceration. And, I think that it gets away with a lot of that because people can have the suspension of disbelief that it's talking about this other place way over here that has nothing to do with us, where it's really drawing very real correlations and asking people like, hey, do you notice any of this where you are right now? Pretty fucked up, right? Maybe we could do something about that, right? So I definitely think that it's worth talking about that. Not only did Dr. Robert, wow, I don't know why I cannot say that. Not only did he actively single out a group of people to deem not worthy of receiving the medication based off of their beliefs, but he broke his Hippocratic oath, which is to do no harm, right? That's worth mentioning. That's worth looking at. It's also so worth looking at that nobody cared that the Sagittarians were dying because they were othered, because they choose to be by themselves, because they have different beliefs, because they're weird and we don't understand them and we don't like them and they did X, Y, and Z. And I just think that's such a dangerous sort of mentality, right? Like, this group of people was hurting. And because you disagree with their philosophy in life, you are okay with them dying out is kind of a bold take. Like, in certain instances, I can kind of understand where they're coming from, right? Like, Tyrell, as I'm a little worried about Tyrell, as a side note, his alcoholism becoming a bit of a concern. But Tyrell, coming from the place of, like, they refused to help us in the resistance when we were fighting for our lives and dying. They did nothing, and now they kind of want to reap the benefits of all the work that we did to keep them alive. Like, him having personal resentment towards that makes sense, right? A lot of the other people just didn't have an issue with Sagittarians dying because they think differently, they feel differently. And here's the thing, I vehemently disagree with the idea that modern medicine would be against any sort of God's decree. Like, I don't know. I don't understand the idea that God would be against medicine, because the way that I was raised in the church that I was raised in, it's like God created all of the things necessary, including the people who became scientists who created the medicine and the vaccines and the surgery and all of that stuff. Like, why would we not take full advantage of these miracles that God has given us, right? So it is very hard for me to fathom people who think the way that Sagittarians do. Like, I fully admit that. However, like I said earlier, I also think that, it's none of my fucking business what other people think or how they think it, as long as it's not hurting anybody, right? Like, I think that sounds like a God that I wouldn't want to follow, but as long as they're not asking me to follow him, as long as they're not, like, harassing me, forcing me, whatever. There's fully cat hair in my mouth. Then what the fuck does it matter to me, right? Like, that's none of my business. Do you? No issue for me. It's again, when you sort of break the social contract, and you ignore, like, the societal obligation that you have to not cause harm to other people. That's when I have the issue with it, right? So, yeah. Hopefully I explained myself better this time. There is something else that I want to talk about. I love Hilo, okay? Like, I think that Hilo almost always makes the right choice, and even when he is, like Adama said earlier in the episode, like, just, like, standing alone in the wind or against the wind or whatever it was that Adama compared Hilo to, he's standing on the right side of history. He's making the right choice. And I hope that Hilo feels vindicated in that, and I hope that he feels more confident of that going forward after this episode, because I think that Hilo was right. And I wish that that room where it was Coddle and Adama and Ty, I wish that they had listened to him more when he went to them saying, like, I think that Dr. Robert is killing people. Like, he has something against the Sagittarians, and he's using it to break his Hippocratic oath. And yeah, like, it was frustrating in that moment, because sure, like, this is an unfounded sort of accusation at this point, but I feel like Adama and Coddle, maybe in particular, should have said, this is an unfounded accusation. Like, you do not have proof. However, come back to me with proof and we'll talk. Or let me investigate. Like, Coddle eventually did run that kid's blood and discovered that he was never given the medicine in the first place, right? So I'm glad that Coddle eventually changed his mind. Like, Ty not siding with Hilo makes total sense to me in that situation because of just everything that's happened between Ty and Hilo thus far, and the fact that Ty thought that Robert was his friend, right? And if there's anything that we know about Ty up to this point, at least based off of him and Adama, it's that Ty is loyal to a fault. Ty is a loyal fucking man, okay? He stood by Ellen for all her faults, for all of her choices. He stood by the Resistance for all of its faults, all of the mistakes that they made, all of their choices. And he has stood by Adama for all of his faults and everything that he's done and all of his choices. Ty is loyal, okay? That is one. He's other things too, don't get me wrong. You know, I like him and dislike him, sometimes in equal measure. It's very back and forth for me with him. But the one thing that I will say is that he is always loyal. And so for him to choose this person that he thinks is his friend over Hilo, who he already has a history with, right? He didn't like when Hilo compared their trauma, right? Because Ty was on the ground on New Caprica. He lost an eye. He lost his wife. He lost a bit of himself, not just his eye, but like a part of his soul. I think he left on New Caprica. And so I think that he really doesn't like that. He doesn't like some of the choices that Hilo's made. He does not like the Cylons, and he does not like that Hilo is married to Athena. Like, there is a lot of water under that bridge, and I don't think Ty's ready to cross it, right? So Ty in that scene and in the later scene when he confronts him makes total sense to me. I just wish that Coddle in particular would have made a different choice, because he does later say too, like, I didn't want to question a colleague or something like that. And that is baffling to me, because like, question the colleague. Do not, why, just because y'all are in the same profession, sorry, my cats are attacking each other, in the same profession, especially when it's something as important as medicine, you need to question your colleagues if you see discrepancies. And Hilo told you the statistics, okay? Statistics do not lie unless they're altered. But there was no indication that those statistics had been altered in any way. And so that is just raw data that is showing you that at rates way incomparable, Sagittarians are dying for small, simple things, right? And this goes back to what I was talking about before with medical inequality. There are statistics in this world today that women of color die in childbirth, in particular black women, at rates far higher than white women, or I think, I'm not sure the full statistics, but I know at rates far higher than white women. The statistics don't lie. There is an issue in the medical field with that. I mean, there's an issue in our entire society with systemic racism. However, my point is, the statistics are not lying, right? Kyle just needs to open his eyes, right? And like, yeah, so that frustrated me.
Here's what I found.
Oh my god. At some point, we're going to have a tribunal of judges that are going to judge Gaius, and Zarek thinks that it's a horrible idea, that it's going to cause like an implosion of the fleet, right? Because it's going to cause a hurricane, as he says, because it's just everyone that is human essentially hates Gaius Baltar, right? With valid reason, let's be honest. As much as I like Gaius, and I wasn't thinking about it in the last episode, but let's look at it, you know, as a whole. So, regardless of whether or not I think the tribunal of judges can be impartial, they can't. I think that even were it an impartial jury of his peers, tribunal of judges, random people on the street that had no idea who he was, the facts are Gaius is guilty. He is. Like, whether or not I think that it was his intention to cause the mass genocide of humanity, obviously it was not. He did not know what giving Six access would cause. He did not know she was a Cylon. However, how much does intention matter in the case of treason and mass genocide, right? Like, the facts are, he is guilty. He did do the thing that people are accusing him of. And, oh, are you stuck? Okay, you're not stuck. And so, like, he's also guilty of, you know, leading the Cylons to New Caprica, however indirectly. Again, he also willingly gave a nuclear weapon to a Cylon. You know, and that wasn't even accidental. He just fully was like, I don't know what you're gonna do with this, but this will endear me to you, because, you know, Gaius is all about self-preservation here. And the thing is, I like Gaius as a character. I don't think this is going to be the end of Gaius's character. I don't think that it makes sense, especially with the Christ allegory, Messenger of God allegory that Six is. It doesn't make sense that this is the end of his character. But I am curious as to how it's not going to be the end of his character. Right? And also, like, sure, it probably will cause a riot. But Gaius is still a member of society, and as such, he is entitled to a fair trial. Because, again, that's the social construct. That's what we agree as a society, that we don't just indiscriminately kill people. We allow them to be decided innocent or guilty, and there to be consequences based upon that decision. The last thing I want to talk about is also about Gaius, and this is just really short. I really enjoy seeing head Gaius, right? And I'm also very curious if Rosalind is going to put together that she sometimes sees Six talking to somebody who's not there. She sometimes sees Gaius talking to somebody who's not there. Could there be a correlation here? Knowing that they have a history, knowing that that history extends all the way back to Caprica. Rosalind is not an unintelligent woman, okay? She knows shit. So, also just want to state for the record, still against declaring martial law. Yeah. Anyway, hopefully this post episode is much more articulate and easy for you guys to digest. You won't know because you won't see the other one, but my editor will know, and hopefully this was a lot easier for him to edit. So thank you guys as always so much for watching. If you want, you can like, comment, and subscribe if you aren't already. You can also watch the next episode right now over on Patreon if you're watching this on YouTube, as well as my entire full-length reaction to this episode and every single episode thus far of Battlestar Galactica. That is over there as well. Hopefully everything I said makes sense and is not too controversial. Yeah, I might avoid the comments on this one just in case though. Bye guys. You could not be cuter. 10 out of 10. 1,000 out of 10.